Hello guys, welcome back to another game development tutorial. It has been quite a long time, around 2 months. So yeah, I plan to finish this tutorial series and maybe one other one, because I felt like that this needed to be finished. So if I just press play, wow, tongue twister. There's a lot of work to be done on this game. So first of all, I don't really like how this moves. I'm just set the move speed to something like 19.5. And then I'm gonna go into the player movement script by double clicking on the script. And also, one more thing that you might notice is in the game view when we are not playing our game, you'll see like these little cracks in the tiles. Uh, those are completely fine. It's a tile bug in Unity. They're completely fine because when you press play, the cracks go away. So yeah. Okay. Anyway, we are back in the player movement script, and there's something that I wanted to change, and I want smoother movement. Because we have this move input variable, but we're not using it. So, in this void check controls, transform dot translate the first one, where it says negative move speed. I want to delete that negative sign, and I want to multiply move speed by move input, and I'll also do the same thing with this bottom if statement. So I'll multiply move speed with move input. Okay, and there we go. Okay, so let's compile. And that should be good. Now, I want the jump force to something like 25.5. I don't really like how high it jumps. Okay, so as you can see, now it has acceleration, and I also like the jump height now. Now we need to add some deceleration, because right now it just snaps to a stop. As you can see, there's no bug with the wall still. It just snaps. So it's gonna fix that. Check controls. I believe. Um, can't check controls. Let's see. Where are we stopping the player? Let's see. Where is can't move? Okay. Now we have to be stopping the player because if we weren't, then it would not be snapping like that. Now, okay, those are the only 2 points of transfer, not translate. Oh, didn't save my script. And there we go. Okay, that's better now. So now we can fix another issue, which I don't really like the way that you place spikes in this game. You have to manually place them by duplicating them, all of that. I don't really like how that works. I want the spikes to be sort of like the tile system that we have going under here. So let's see. What I will do is because right now, if we make another tile system, so if we go under environment, right click, create 2D object tile map, drag the grid under the environment and rename it to spikes. And now let's go under the spikes and select the tile map. And now I want to add a component for tile map color 2D, and I want to add a danger tag. Okay, so now we've got that set up. Now let's actually add a tile map for it. So now it can only draw squares, which we don't really want. So, what I will do for this is I'm just gonna rename this tile map to tile map 2, so you don't get confused between tile map 1 and tile map 2 for the main tile and the spikes. Okay. So now instead of drawing with the main rule palette, I want to create a new palette called Spike. Then I'll just press create. Now we can choose where to create it. So I will just go under assets, and I want to create it under tile, and there we go. Okay, now I will drag my triangle right in there. Then I have to save it again. I'll save it under tile one more time and press save. Okay, so now we can draw tiles, but they don't spike tiles, but they don't look that great. So what I'll do is I don't want to draw with this triangle. I want to draw like with a pre-made triangle that's dark gray, pretty much like this tile. So we can't really do that inside of Unity, because if we try to drag the spike in, we can't do it. It's impossible. So what I will do is, in the description, I will leave a link to a program called Libersprite, and what that is, if I open it right here, basically, and this might look very familiar to you. This is the free version of Aseprite. It's not illegal or anything like that. It's just a free version of Aseprite, and it's free because it doesn't have all the features of it. But yeah, this is a pixel art program, so we can just make pixel art with it. So I'll leave a description for Libersprite in the description. It will download with a button. If I just go to Google, Libersprite download, and here it is. So you're just going to select downloads, and then select Windows, Linux, or Mac. I believe Linux is like Chromebook or stuff like that. I've never tried the Linux download, but okay. So anyway, so now we can go to File, then New, to create a new pixel art drawing. And I believe we've already done this because we had to make the tile assets. So I think we know how to do this. So we can select width and height, which for me is 16 by 16. Then we'll press OK to actually make an image. We can zoom in and zoom out with the mouse wheel. And it's just click to create, it's click and hold to create a line. Then we have all of our default color over here. We can also choose some by dragging on that and pressing this red exclamation point to actually add the color to our palette. So now it appears right there. Then I'll drag this little slider, take a lighter gray, and press the little exclamation point one more time. Now that is in our palette. Okay, so now I will select my line tool on the side, and the shortcut for that is L. Then I will click and drag all the way down, just like that. That's a pretty good spike. So I'll do that one more time, just like that. Create a bottom. Then I can move it around with this move tool. It does not have to be centered, so just don't worry about that. That's good enough. And then I can select this fill tool, or G for the shortcut. Then I can select my lighter gray and fill that in. Okay, so that is my spike. Now I can press Control S to save. And you can choose to save it in a folder. I'm just not going to do that right now. Maybe metal props. And you can see that I already have a spike in here, but for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to name spike 2. Then for file type, instead of all formats, we want that to be a PNG format, so the background is transparent. Then I'll press OK to save the file. Okay, now I can close out of LibreSprite and head back into Unity so I can import this sprite. Okay, so now I have opened my sprites folder. I will go to my file explorer, and where I saved my spike tile, which is under metal props, and there it is, spike 2. So now I'll just drag this file right into the project panel of Unity, and there it is. There's a little preview. It's very tiny, so we're going to have to change that. So first of all, we're going to set the pixels per unit to 16, and compression quality to none. And also, there's one more thing that they have to do. Is we have to change the filter mode from bilinear to point. And why we do that is we have to do that with all pixel art. And that's because if we don't do it, then the art will turn out blurry. So then I'll just press apply, and there we go. Now we can see our beautiful tile if we drag it into the scene. Drag it up, and there it is. And let me show you what happens when I turn it to bilinear. Yeah, it turns all blurry. So yeah, that's how we change it to points. Okay, so I just deleted that from the scene. So now let's select our tile map 2, go to the tile palette, and instead of this default triangle, I'm just going to drag in my spike. It will ask me where to save it, and I want to save it in my tile folder, and just press save. Okay, now I can draw with this spike now. Now I can just make like a line of spikes, and as you can see from the outline, the green outline, that is the collider. Okay, just gonna draw a few of these to make sure that it works. Looks pretty nice. Now I can delete my spike prefab from the scene. Okay. So now I believe it should work almost immediately. I want to do one more thing, and I want to change the layer from default to ground. Then I'll save, and I can test this. Okay, so the knockback works, both sides. And the player can also die. Okay, so now that we have that working, we can actually delete the spike prefab entirely, because we no longer need that. We have a spike tile. And now, the last thing that I want to do for this video was I want to actually make a death effect for our player. So now he just sort of disappears and magically respawns. I think we have respawning. Not entirely sure. Okay, we don't. But that's fine. I'm just gonna add a death effect for right now. So I'll make the death effect out of particles. So I'll right click in my project and create empty. And if you're wondering, the shortcut for that is Control Shift N or Command Shift N if you're on a Mac. And I'll just right click on transform and press reset. Now I can drag the object up to about right there so we can actually see it compared to the player. Then I'll rename this game object to player death effect. Okay, so now I can right click and I want to create an effect and I want to create a particle system. So you can automatically see it starting to work. The particle system looks extremely ugly right now, but we will fix that. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to set the duration in the very top box to 2, and then I'll set the simulation space to world. Okay, once you've done that, we can scroll down and we can go to the very bottom tab, which is the render tab. And for the material, I don't want this to be the default particle system, so I will select this little dot to select a new material, and I want that to be Sprite's default. Now you can see that it has created a bunch of little squares. So that is what we want, but it still looks kind of ugly. What I want to do is I'll go, first of all, before I go into the size over left-hand panel, I'll check the box right next to it, and now I can go under the panel because now I have enabled that. Then I will select this size box, and as you can see, a little preview has popped up. If it hasn't, and it looks like this, then you can just, there's a little bottom box down here that says Particle System Curves. You can select that box for the preview, and now you can select the size box, and you can see like a little slope. And down here, we have options for the slope, and I'll just select this one right here. Okay, so now we have the particles sort of fading away as they go. So now I can close the size over left-hand box. And now, I can go under the emission tab, the very top tab, and set the rate over time to 0. Then I can add an array to this list of bursts. So, once I click this plus sign, a bunch of options will come up: time, count, cycles, interval, and probability. Pretty much the only option that we'll focus on here is the count, and I think that the count is fine for now. So, what I want to do is, I will now start changing some of these top options. So, I'll change the start lifetime to, let's just say about 3. But instead of that, something even better that we do is select this little bottom drop-down box and select random between 2 constants. Now, we can choose the minimum value of lifetime, which will be 2. The max value will be 3.5. So now they're all fading in sort of different times. And now, we can just do the same thing with start speed. So I'll select this bottom drop-down right here. Random between 2 constants. Start speed between maybe like 9 and 15. Just like that. Now the player sort of exploding, which I like. That didn't sound right at all. So the one thing that I want to randomize is the particle start size. So under start size, I'll select this drop down, random between 2 constants, around 0.45 and 0.6. Okay, now I will go under the shape tab, which is the second tab, and I'll set the radius to around 0.35. That's a pretty good radius. Then I'll scroll up, so we're no longer in the particle component, now we're in the transform component. And I'll set, I believe, my Y, nope, I'll set my X rotation to -90. So it's facing up. So it sort of blows up upwards, I guess. Okay. So now, it's not looking great right now. So what I'll do is I'll set my gravity modifier to 1, so they sort of burst out and then fall. But as you can see, they go directly through the ground. So to change that, let's scroll down and let's check this collision tab. And you can see that it's still going through the ground. So let's open this tab up and set the type instead of planes to world, and instead of 3D mode, we want 2D mode. So now you can see that the particles are really bouncy. So you can set the dampen to 0.25 and the bounce to 0.2. Okay, and you can modify these two values to make it more bouncy or less bouncy. You can even change the bounce to like 100, so it bounces a lot. But I'm just gonna leave it at 0.2. Okay, so anyway, now since we have it like bouncing gravity, I don't think that I really like this start speed anymore. So I'll set the start speed between 3 and 4. 7 and 8. 6 and 8. Okay, that seems pretty good. I'll set the start size back to 0.85 and 1. Okay, so they're all a little bit bigger now. Now I'll go to the emission tab. And now I can set the count to like 20. So there's 20 particles per burst. Okay, that seems like a pretty good death effect for our player. So now we can turn this into a prefab by dragging the player death effect into our project panel, then deleting it from the scene. Actually, there's one more thing that I wanted to do to this. So I can double click on my player death effect prefab and select the effect. And then you'll notice a top setting called looping, and I want to uncheck that box. Okay, that's all I wanted to do with that. So now whenever the player dies, I can just make this spawn, and make the player respawn, because that's pretty quick, so we can just do that. Okay, so I'll go under the player, and I will select my player controller. And in this script, I need a new a new variable. I need a public game object, if I can spell, called death effect. And then I can go under the death method, and right before it says destroy game object, I'll say game object effect geo, or effect game object, is equal to instantiate. Then we pick what we want to clone. This will be our death effect. Where we want to clone it. This will be at the player's position. This is transform.position. Then the rotation, which is quaternion.identity, which means 0 rotation. And I want to clone it as a game object. Okay. Then right before the player dies or gets destroyed, I'll say destroy effect geo after 3 seconds. 3.5 seconds. Okay. Now I have the spawning, the death effect spawning, so we can test this. Go back into Unity. Sorry about that. Then, if we scroll down to the player controller, we can see that we have a new slot for death effect. And we can just drag in our player death effect prefab right into there. Now, we can press play. And we can kill ourselves really quick. And our player will explode. Okay. Pretty nice. And the last thing that I want to do to this video is make the player respawn. This may sound easy, but it actually is a little bit harder. You might think that we just have to wait a certain amount of time, then reload the scene or level. But we can't actually do that because the player is destroyed. All the scripts on it are destroyed, and therefore the respawn script will never run. So what we have to do is I'm just going to make a new empty object by right-clicking in the scene and creating an empty object. And I'll rename this object to Game Manager. And I can call the respawn script inside of the Game Manager script, because the Game Manager is not being destroyed. So I can press add component, and I want to add a script called Game Manager. I can select a new script and then create an add. Okay, as you can see, it has added a Game Manager script right here. It will look different from all the other scripts, and that's just because Game Manager is a keyword, and it just wants to differentiate itself between the other scripts and the important script. So now I can open up the Game Manager script, and in here we need a public float called respawn time. Okay, now I'm just going to delete these comments, and I don't need a start function. One more variable that we actually need is a public bool called player dead, and I'll set that to false. Actually, I don't need that because the default for a bool variable is always false. Okay, then I'll mark this with the attribute hide in inspector, so we cannot see it inside of Unity because we don't need to. Okay, so now what I can do is right below the update method, I can say enumerator respawn player. Then all I will do in this method is say yield return new wait for seconds respawn time. And then I want to reload the scene. And to do this, at the top, we have to be using Unity Engine.scene management in order to reload a scene. And then right below this, you'll return new wait for seconds. I can say scene manager.load scene, then parentheses, scene manager.get active scene.build index, so it'll reload the current scene that we are currently in. Okay, now in the update function, we have to call this whenever the player dead is equal to true. So in the update, I'll say if player dead is equal to true, we can say start coroutine respawn player, and there we go. Now, in our player control script, whenever the player dies, we can set this player dead variable equal to true. One more thing that I want to do in the script is make a singleton pattern, and if you watched my last tutorial, you'll know what I mean. And all that is we have to write public static game manager called instance. Then in the void awake, we can say if instance is equal to null, then instance is equal to this. Else it will destroy the game object. So that means that there are two game managers in one scene. And the singleton pattern just allows us to access the game manager object really easily, so we don't have to reference it, because we don't need to, because there's only one in every scene. So now I will select my player controller script, and right before we say death, I will say game manager.instance. So now we're using the game manager's instance variable. Player dead is equal to true. And there we go. Now we can go back into Unity, and I'll set the respawn time to something like 3. Okay, now I'll press play, and run into some spikes. And there we go. Now he explodes. Now after 3 seconds, he should respawn. Just like that. Okay, and that is it for this tutorial. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.